Hey everyone. Cool. Yeah, so I'm Chris, and today we'll be building a Next.js application. We'll just go through the process of setting it up and adding Tillwind to it and how we can load the data into our app. Just a little bit about myself. As I said, I'm Chris. I'm a developer at daily.dev, and in my spare time, I write at my own blog, Daily Dev Tips, which we'll be using as the source of material for this course. So I'll be sharing my screen during this course, and yeah, you guys will be able to see how we can set up a Next.js application. So for those of you that don't know, Next.js is basically a like wrapper around React, just making it easy for to handle certain stuff. It's super fast. If you haven't worked with it yet, it can do a lot of cool things. Definitely worth checking out. And like I said, today we'll create like a demo application. We'll load some anime shows into it, like website, and see how we can go about it. Right. So without further ado, I'll share my screen and then we can go from there. Just 1 second. Right. So first of all, like I said, we'll be using my own blog on this topic, just because it's easier. And if you guys ever want to like look it up, what we're doing, it's easy to relate to these things. So we'll be setting up Next.js. It basically comes installed in Node. So if you do have Node on, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for you. This is my terminal. So if you do have Node installed, which you can check with Node -v, Node comes in several versions. And I think NPX has been around since like Node 14, from the top of my head. So what we'll do is I generally use like a folder to keep all my projects, but it's up to you. You can place it anywhere you like, really. And then we can run the following command, create next app. This basically tells it to create a next application, where npx is the right command. So we don't want npm, we want npx, which is basically the React toolkit wrapper. So we can say proceed. And then it asks us what our project name is. So we're going to be movie demo Next.js, a long name. And then it's going to install all the dependencies, which can take like quite some time. So in the meantime, let's read on. Yeah, so basically the basic one will start a JavaScript version. We can also like force the TypeScript version if you want to use TypeScript rather. Which would be my recommendation, actually. But for now, let's keep things simple. This is just easier to explain on the JavaScript one. And once this is done, we can start running this server by running npm run dev. And then we should see this basic page of Next.js. So let's just wait for this to finish, and then we'll start it up. I think what we'll do in the meantime is actually go to the project. Let's see. We'll do it from here, actually. It'll be easier. Also, in the meantime, if anyone has questions, I'll just check this every now and then to see if we have any questions pop up. All right, so in the meantime, it takes quite a while. I don't have the fastest internet here. But once this is done, we have most of the like heavy lifting done. It's normally quite fast. So, and then what we want to do is we want to open the project in our editor. For me, it's Visual Studio Code. Find it to be the easiest one. So what we do is we navigate into this folder. And then let's just open it in Visual Studio. So you can use code and then a space and then a dot. This will open a new instance of Visual Studio. As you can see, it'll load up. And then you can see we have our basic node next application. And we get the README of the next application. We get some basic pages. So we get the index page, and we get an API, where the API endpoint will be available on API/hello. We could try that in a second. So let's head over to the terminal. So if we say npm run dev, should start up a dev server, which will be available on localhost 3000. And as you can see, this starts up perfectly. This is the basic page, right? So this is the pages/index.js page. Just has some links in here. And like we said, we also get an API, which is called hello. So if we open that, you can see it comes with like a simple API. This just returns like a basic object, and that's all there is to it. But you can extend this and make your own APIs on Next.js. It's really powerful to do so. I have some articles on that if you're interested, but let's first go on with this one. So we'll be installing Tillwind. So we have to install some dependency, which are Tillwind CSS, Post CSS, and other prefixer. And we just want to get the latest of each version and install them as a dev dependency using this -d command. So in our project folder, we'll use that. Then the next thing we want to do is run npx Tillwind CSS init. And what that does is it will create a Tillwind config.js file for us. And because we passed the -p, we also get a post post CSS config. I think I made a typo there. Let's try that out. Yeah, you see it should be post CSS. And then we want to open up the Tillwind config, it says, and add these purge classes for Next.js. So Next.js can render JS, TypeScript, JSX, and TSX files. And we want to run that for all our pages and components. So let's head over to the Tillwind config. And I think we actually need to enable the just-in-time mode. Yes. If we want to use it. I'm not sure if we're going to use it today, but that's fine. And then we want to head over to our global style. So in the styles, we have a globals, which has some basic styling. It's really nothing. So we can remove it and add this. And I think in the meantime, we can see what it looks like now. It shouldn't be much. Yeah, so it's pretty dull now. So let's have a look what we have here. Yeah, so if we just copy paste this just to see if it works, right? We should be able to go to our page, our index page, and return this piece of HTML we have. And then go here. Okay, it's not loading. So what did we forget? Might have forgotten a prefix or something. Wait, we might have to reboot it because we're using the just-in-time engine. Let's see, yeah. So that's an important thing. If you make changes to the config, it doesn't get live reloaded. So we have to restart the server. And then you can see this is like Tailwind because it looks pretty now. We can, let's see what we can change so you can see it better. Yeah, so it is rounded, but we could say like we want it more rounded. So you can see now it's looking a bit more rounded. So that's basically it. We have a next application with Tillwind already done. really quick, took us like 10 minutes, not even. So now let's have a look at like page options and how they work in Next.js. So as you can see, we have like our static index. In the meantime, right, we have Deva, you have it dubbed. Please let me know. Happy to answer any questions you might have. Actually, just gonna pop this over at the side here, just so I can see you guys' questions. Thanks for joining. So let's say we want to add like a about page, right? That might be like a good thing to add. So we could say about JS, and then basically what we want to do is we want to like have it exported as a default function. There's multiple ways to do it, but like this is just the easiest one. And then inside you'll have a render, which will return whatever you put in. So we could say, like let's say we want a heading which has a certain clause, which is like quite big and maybe bold, that says about me, some information about myself. Just to show you how these pages will work, right? So this is the about page. And what Next does is it will enable this on the /about endpoint. So as you can see, we have a simple about page. We could style this a bit more eventually, but so far really good. Let's say we could make this like grid place. Let's actually do flex. Might be easier. And then make it like min height of the screen. And then, oh wait, we want to have a flex call actually. Right, so basically we have our about page. Just in the meantime, I'm gonna switch the window. Do let me know what your doubts are. Happy to answer them. But in the meantime, I'm just going to go ahead because we learned how we can do static pages, right? Static pages are cool, and in a lot of cases, they will be enough for us. But what if we want like a page that loads dynamic information, right? So in our example, we want to create like an overview page that shows like the top anime shows. And how we can do that is by leveraging something called static props. This basically means that we get these properties once on the server side render, and it will return in the actual page as a property. So before the page renders, it will get this information and it will render them, return them to the page where we can do something with it. So let's set that up actually. So the page we'll be adding will be called shows.js. So this will now become available on the shows endpoint. And then what we want to do is, we can even do it like this. So we could say export default function shows, and we're going to pass something there. And then we're going to return, for now, we just say shows here, right? Just to verify that this works. So you can see shows are there, but it doesn't exist yet. So what we can do is we can leverage this piece of code. And so what this does, this is not going to work. So let's say we will add some static arrays. No, let's add some objects, right? So this could have like name Demon Slayer, and then another one could be name Narad. Right. And then, so now these will be passed to our shows element, but still nothing will have been changed, right? So if you look here, let me just see if I can quickly switch here. So Sunil is asking, we can do server-side rendering and static side generation. Yeah. So that's the whole cool part about Next. It can do all of these things, which makes it super powerful. So we can use server-side rendering, so what we're looking at now, and it can do static rendering based on like real-time data. So we'll also get into that, because after we've done this, I'll show you guys how you can do that. That's pretty cool. So basically, we attach the properties to our return element, which makes it available here. So we can now say the shows can be here. And to demo this out, we could potentially do this. And then once you, sorry for that, log it here, we can see in our console, I don't know, this might be a bit tiny for you. You can see at the bottom here, it logged the array we had, which means we can use it in our list here. So we could say, okay, we want a list, and then we want to log over like each of our items, which is a show. Then we want to return a key, a list item, which will be the show's name. Right. Do you have to open this? And then this will need to have a key. So in this case, we could leverage the name. Like normally we want to use like an ID, but we don't have one for now. And then if we refresh this, you can see it renders a list. So I'll make this a little bit bigger as well. And if we look at our source code, we can see the list items are actually generated. So this is now like almost magically passed from our static props to the actual function that renders. And that's pretty cool. So this is obviously something we set here now. So we said, okay, the shows are these things, but we can fetch these from an API, which is where the magic kind of happens. Hey, Yaya, hope I'm saying this right. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. So let's see, because I think I added this link here. Let's just see what we can get from this. So this is, I don't have a JSON viewer installed, but this gets like a top element, which has an array of shows, right? So these are the top ranking anime shows. So if we now like fetch that, we can leverage that. So where we said the shows here are dynamic, we could say we want a response, and this is an asynchronous function, as you can see. So we can use await to fetch our API. This has no keys or whatsoever. Do use this with caution, because we don't want to spam this too much. But then we can say, okay, once you fetched it, it will get like the raw HTTP request, and we can await for it to turn into JSON, which now, if we save this, we'll get an error because it can't loop our shows, right? So if we wait for this, you can see it doesn't know how to map shows, which is correct because the format of the show is now different. To fix that, we can simply, the easiest thing we could do is to add top here, because the shows are mapped with a certain top. I think that should be it. Yeah, and then we can see there's quite a lot of list items rendered, but you can see it doesn't show up. And that has to do with it probably not having a name. So let's open up the API again. And you can see the first thing we notice is there is a mel ID, which we could like perfectly use for the key because it will be unique. And then it comes with a title, so it doesn't come with a name. So that's what we want. We want to show the title there. So now if we like go back, we didn't need to refresh, that's all happening for us. We can see like a list of all the top enemies. Some of these are Japanese names, but doesn't matter. For now, that's cool. So in the meantime, I'm gonna switch to the window. Sunil is asking, what's the use of key in the list item? Yeah, you're right. JSON would be easier to read. I can do it in a second. What's the use of the key? Very good question indeed. So whenever you map something, like basically loop something in React, React wants you to identify it with a certain key. This makes it easier for React to identify unique objects, right? So if we didn't do this, we'll even like, you can see the red squiggly line. And if you hover it, it'll say missing key property for the element. And we can open this, which will give us the React rules on it. So this is basically saying, one, if an element that likely required key prop, so that's always when you loop an array, it should have a key. And that's just something React uses to basically identify your unique list item with. So it's a very good practice. And if you, for instance, in the first example, we didn't really have a key. Another thing you could do is return the index. So the map function also comes with an index. It's probably not going to be happy with that, but like technically it's unique, so you can use that as well to map. So if you don't have an index, you can use that. But if you do, like always better to use an actual key to make your list item unique. So you're saying we can use a JSON formatter, I think. Let's see. Yeah, so as you can see, I formatted the JSON. So what we get is an object, and it has like a hash of the request we did. It has a expiry time, and then it has a top, which is an array with objects in it. So each object will have the mel ID, the title, a URL to my enemy list, an image URL, so we can render a image as well if we wanted to. It has a type, the amount of episodes, start and end date, and the score. So that's the my anime list score. So quite a lot of data for like an overview, but it's even better as it can have data for each of these items as well. So in the meantime, let me just quickly see. Good question. So Sunil's asking if you need to have any knowledge of React to learn Next. And I would say the basics of React definitely help, as it like uses quite a lot of it. But it's definitely possible to just play around with Next
Hey everyone, he'll be joining back in 2 minutes. He have faced the internet issue in his area, that's why. So he'll join back in the next 2 minutes. Thanks for your patience.
I think you lost me for a second. Should be back now. Just double checking. Yep. Sorry for that. So I was explaining about the dynamic routes. So what we are going to create is an endpoint that has show / 123, and then 123 will be the ID of something that we then can retrieve. So let's set that up first. All right. So what we'll do is we'll create a folder. Oh, and this is another thing we didn't really dive into, but folders also work as pages. So if we do index.js, and then let's just copy our about page real quick, just to showcase you how this will work. And then if you call this show, show page. So if we now visit,
Hi Chris,
hi,
can you share your screen?
sorry for that. Yep. Right. Sorry for that, guys. So I've created this show folder in our pages structure and added just the index for now. We're going to change this, but I just want to show you that you can use folders as URL endpoints as well. So we already had the shows with the S. So if we remove the S, we see this is now the show page. So that's really cool. You could do some really cool stuff with that in Next.js. But for us, we want to do ID. So now, what this means is we can't no longer load this one because it doesn't exist. We can try the 123, but Next doesn't know 123 yet. So we'll be working on that in a second. And what we need for that is we just saw this static paths, right? Sorry, static props, which basically means static props is for a single page. It's the properties for a single page. What Next brings us is a static paths, and that basically means that you can create different kinds of paths. And I'll demonstrate this with hard-coded values again for you. So just gonna paste this in here and make the terminal a little bit smaller. So let's just comment this out for a second, and then create a even better. We can do comment this out, and then we can say, okay, we want to have a path that's linked to ID 123, right? And now, this will work, I think. No, it doesn't. Okay, yeah, because we haven't rendered it yet. I think we have to fall back to this. So let's try that for a second. Yeah. Because we do need the params, I think. No, actually, this should technically work. It might be because I'm never sure if these can render strings. Oh, yeah, this is my bad. It should be like this. Okay, so I think then we can even do this. So as you can see, we obviously have to have the show endpoint, and it must be a array of strings or objects. So what we had differently is that this was a string, right? So I think that is where it actually is wrong. Fallback is Boolean. Just 1 second. We'll try this out for a minute. Must be array string object. This might have actually been changed, but okay, yeah, it must be an array. So because there's always multiple, right? So we want to have multiple paths, and that should technically work. And then it's saying what's added. Yeah. Okay. So this basically means we can have a path that's 1, 2, 3. So if we would do 4, 4, 5, it wouldn't know what to do. And show no longer exists. That's correct. But this is saying, well, you can define these static paths, but as long as I don't have a get static props, I don't know what to do with it. So nothing will happen. And that basically means that we have to reintroduce static props. But we're going to reintroduce it a little bit differently because we do know what the params are. So I'm just going to paste this here. And the params that we pass are the ID in our case. So we could say, like, turn this off for a second to make things like a little bit easier. We could pass the ID. And I think we can, oh, whoops, my bad. I think this is in the wrong file. I'm just going to close that for a second. So here. And now we're passing these props as the ID. So actually, it might be better to do it like this for a second. So now we're passing an object with an ID, and we can retrieve it here. And then we could say show page for a specific ID. So as you can see, this will show page 1, 2, 3. And then if we do 4, 5, 6, it doesn't exist, so it doesn't know what to do with it. Right? To test this out, we can add a new path. So we could add 3, 2, 1. So 1, 2, 3 still works, and 3, 2, 1 will now also work. So we created a new dynamic page. However, what we want to end up with is for each of our shows, we want to have one of these dynamic pages. So in the meantime, I'm just going to see if there's any more questions. Not yet. So, again, you can find all of these on daily-dev-tips.com. I've written them out with a little bit more detail, and I do have some other articles on Next.js as well. So what we want to do is, again, use the same call we did before for an overview. So you can see it's actually sitting here already. And we could, and then we want to like map over all of these shows and render a specific element for each of them. Let's see. So that should be it. So now the path should be dynamic, and we just want to add show mal id to string, because this can be dynamic. But and then let's try this out. It should now not work on the 1 to 3 because that's not an ID. But let's take our JSON and try this one. So the 5114 should be available, which is the Full Metal Alchemist. Yeah, so it created a dynamic page for this now, which is pretty cool. And what we want to do now is we want to, instead of returning just the props here, we want to fetch the API with the specific ID. So this will get like the detailed like endpoint data. We can try that out actually. So this one, and then 5114, I think it was, for the Full Metal Alchemist. We'll try the JSON formatter again. Right, so as you can see, this has like, what does it have? Title, English title, Japanese title, synonyms. It has when it's aired, it has a duration, and I think related shows, producers. I think it also has episodes somewhere. Yeah, here, opening team. So this is really extended details. Definitely something we can use, right? So we'll be adding this to our return value. So like instead of this ID, we can just pass the show, which will be this whole object we have here. And then we can use some of this in our new front end. So instead of this ID, we can like get the show, and we could say show dot title, which is a element. Oh wait, I did something wrong here. I need to do. Did I pass this double? Oh yeah, no, I don't need to escape this because it's not a object that's called show. The show is the actual object. So as you can see now, we will have the show page for Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and let's get something we didn't have before. So like the synopsis maybe. We can add like a paragraph here and say show.synopsis. And that should show like what the show is about, right? Maybe we actually want like a little bit smaller. Just some Tillwind clauses to make this a little bit bigger. Like a little bit margin. Right. So this will give us like a show page for a certain show, but we haven't linked them yet. So how can we do that? So if you go back to our shows overview, we should still have all our shows here. But we want to be able to like click this whole thing and go to that page, right? So to do that, I think I also written that down. I didn't in another article, but no worries, we'll get to that. So we're gonna open this, and what we can do is we can either wrap this whole thing or we could do like a read more button thing. And that's the cool part about Next.js. We can actually link things. And let's just see, because we do have it on GitHub as well. I'm pretty sure I did this for the shows. No, I didn't for this one. No, okay, I didn't. But then let's just make it work. So we could say we want a href that goes to the show. Let's do this differently. And you'll see that this actually is different in Next.js because it will want us to use the link attribute. But let's just try this for a second. So this should be show mel ID, because that's what we're using to generate on. And then it should say read more. So like technically this will work, right? So we have the read more button here. So if we go here, it should open this Gintama show. Yeah, which it does. So we get the synopsis for the Gintama show. And this should show the Attack on Titan synopsis, which it does. So that's perfect, actually. Like I said, we can use Next.js link, which is like the way it wants you to use it. So this basically works like this. You wrap like a link element around this, and then we can use it the same way we did. So we can use this, and then the A can just be the element that like supports it, and link is a like next element. No, I didn't add it. So you have to like import it. For some reason, my auto import was like failing. Oh, what's going on? Place it with a small letter. And this will do the exact same thing, as you can see, but there are some advantages to using the next links because they do the client-side transitions easier. So if the page is inside Next.js, so if you're not going to an external link, this is actually the better way to do it, because I do like pre-caching on this, I think. They explain it here in total, and you can like do some pretty cool stuff, like prefetch it, replace the current history, scroll to a certain position. So there are pretty strong things in this using the link format. Just a second. So by now we learned like how we can set up Next.js, how we can add Tillwind pretty easily, and even how we can render a overview page of these kind of things, and then even render detailed pages, which is pretty cool. However, Next.js makes it really powerful as that it can be a full-blown static site, which someone asked in the comments about. And I'm going to demonstrate to you how easy that actually gets. So if you go here and we just do open this folder for a second, you can see there is no output here now. So our pages don't really exist. So we have to show page, but like we don't have a static page. And then like if we would say in the terminal npm run build, it will start our Next.js build. So this will take like a second. It might fill now because there is a I think an issue with like loading this much amount of data. Let's just see if that's correct what I'm saying. Pre-rendering page can't read property of undefined. Yeah, so I think this is a small issue on this API, which is a bit of a bummer. It has a limit to what you can render in a certain amount of time, right? So it'll like freak out if you ask it too much. So if we're building a website, it'll go through all the pages. So as you can see, it's trying to build 55 pages. So eventually it'll just like freak out, doesn't know what to do, and just stop working, which is a bit of a shame. But I can promise you this works on build. You do need to cache this actually to make this work locally. Just thinking if I have it hosted somewhere, because I changed it to be something else actually. Just gonna have a small overview here, because active links. I think I used it in this one, so no. Might be here. No, also not. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to. I do have an example of how that would work. Just with this API, we can't use it because of the limitations of the API. Just a bit of a shame. I think you can get around it with this API even if you have an API key, but which I don't. So I can't demo how to build, but it'll work. What we could do is we could quickly switch it to the Pokemon API because I do think that one is free. So I think we can do all. No, let's see. Oh, here, this one. So we could create one that will retrieve like some Pokemon quickly. So you can just have a view of how it works. So if we change this to be the Pokemon API and we want to get the first 50 Pokemon maybe, let's just keep this for a second. Just want to see how the format looks like. Results. So we're gonna have to change this top to results. Just gonna change this for a second. And it comes with name and URL. So we're just gonna use the name. We won't render the image, and we can say Pokemon.name. Yeah, I think we can do like this, Pokemon/Pokemon name. Just want to make. We obviously. No, it's still running. All right. This should be okay. Whoops. What do we got? Name. Okay, this should render. Just want to see what we get. Yeah, so it does render. It's just, it might be because we added this overflow here. That's a bit weird. let's just change this actually. Because in this case, it would be easier to have like a normal list item. Just to make things cleaner. Right. And this needs to be a list. I have to restart this. Right. So as you can see now, we have the list of Pokemon, and we should be. Let's just change this all because Pokemon, and there should be. Just so it's neater, right? Well, this should be all Pokemon. And then we should be able to go here. I think we have to actually do it like this then. Okay, and then we want to do Pokemon ID. Just so we can show you guys that it can work like that. So we want to do Pokemon. And then this should, well, it can link the ID actually. Doesn't really matter. It just means that the ID needs to be a map. And the same here. So the ID should map. And this should be linked to this. And the prop should be Pokemon. Oops. And then we should pass it here as well. So, this might be an issue now because we defined it twice. Pokemon, the name. Single page. What else do we have on this API? Just want to see what we get for results. Abilities, moves, species, sprites maybe. Yeah, maybe we should use the sprites, I guess. Front, default. So we could say Pokemon sprites front default. So this will be an image, but I just want to make sure it works. So we didn't add the links back. So this should be linking to what do we say? We said Pokemon slash Pokemon.name, which will be our dynamic ID. So we can go Bulbasaur. Right. Okay, and then yeah, we made a mistake here because with the Pokemon, it doesn't have top, but it uses result. I think it was called. What do we got here? Oh, maybe I forgot to add a endpoint here. So this should be the correct endpoint. So now we get the single sprite. Let's just render it out as a image. just because it's easier. We can use it like this. So now you can see we have our single page, and we can open any of these, and it should render the sprite. So again, let's try clear this for a second and use the build command. I do think this has no limitation. So once this is done, we should be able to see a disk. Yeah, so this is now fully done. So as you can see, it like created all these paths as like single pages, which is really, really cool. Oh wait, no, obviously now I didn't have a public endpoint, but that doesn't matter. We can now host this on like Vercel or wherever we want to have it like build out. And that is actually where my other article came to be about. If we would run the following command, we would get a exported version. Okay, so I changed this to my build. So if we now run npm run build, it'll take a bit, but we'll get an export. Just in the meantime, opening the comments section. What we got? So if I do static side, yeah, if you do the static site generation, all the pages will be built at runtime. And indeed, on the other API, we have a request limit. Just in the amount of time, you can't spam it too much, which the builder will actually do. So he'll say, who is this? I'm Chris. I'm a developer at daily.dev and also a blogger at Daily Dev Tips. And we're just going through some setting up Next.js. We're almost at the end of the course. I just wanted to show you guys that we now have an out folder. So by adding this out build, we get all the static assets. And you will see the pages is what we're interested in. So this is all scrambled, but like Next does its magic with it. So you get the Pokemon page, but for each of the Pokemons, we get all our unique IDs, which is this will be able to render because it has the magic setup in here, which is really, really cool. So you can literally just upload this static folder on a web server. And of course, the easiest thing to do is to use Vercel to host this somewhere, and that will be even better, which we could quickly do. So what we could do is we could say Pokemon Next.js. I'll make this public so you can just use it. This should be pretty quick. And then we want to go here, and we want to say in the new Git, add the remote. Just have to restart this. I had some weird issues with Visual Studio Code on first inits. And now we should be able to wait for this. There we go. It's going to push this and publish it. So this will push it all to Git, and it will show up here. In the meantime, open Vercel. So for Next.js, your best hosting option is Vercel. They just like it's by the people of Next.js, or other way around, never know. But it just makes sense to have it on Vercel. Say just really quick, and you'll see why. Let's just see. Right, so we can choose our Git repo here in a second. So our one will be Pokemon Next.js. There we go. You can see it's just the last one. And it will automatically know that it's a next thing. We did override the build, so let's just see what it does. Should be okay. Once this is done, we should have it online as well. Data storage. Yeah, you can use data storage as well, depending on what you need. You could connect it to a real-time data store like Firebase or Supabase. You could have a SQL database. So, for instance, the company I work for, Daily.dev, they built their tool on Next.js for a big part. And that's all dynamic data as well. So we store quite a lot of data for all the articles. So that's pretty cool. Is it similar to Svelte? I do think so. As they say, Svelte kind of like next level to React. However, I haven't been able to try it, so I wouldn't be able to tell you in details. Let's see. So it should be done. Just see if it works. So we get like this endpoint. Oh, whoops. This one, sorry. This is our homepage we made. And we should be able to go to, I think we call it Pokemon, right? And then let's do Charizard, just because he's pretty cool. Yeah, and then, so now this is all, like this is not being built as we click it, right? This is already built by Next.js now. So we can take any one of these and it's already built. So that's the real magic power of Next.js. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I sure did. It's like so impressive to me what you can build in an hour, and yeah, it's just super powerful. This is just like the top of the iceberg in terms of what you can do with Next. I definitely advise you to have a play around with it. I also did a whole session on like using a Spotify API and a login and retrieving a user's playlist and interacting with it. So there's so much you can do. Let's just see at the questions. TechGate is asking, is it necessary to have a very good knowledge about React? I said this before. I think it's like it really helps if you have a good understanding of the basics of React. Sorry, so like the basics of pages in React and how a component works, and the hooks of React as well. So use state, use effect, because you'll see them in Next.js as well. So that would definitely be very good thing to add. Someone's asking me if I can add some links. I can link my Twitter. That's probably the easiest one in the comments. And all of my other links will also be on there as well. Let me just see if I can actually. I don't know if I can add these. Yeah, I don't see an option to. Wait, let's see if you guys can. Right, I don't know if you can see the link I just shared. Hope so, but. Yeah, so I want to thank you all for joining. It's really cool, and I really like the fact that you guys are like asking so many questions. That's really appreciated. And Geek Scott, thank you for sharing that. That is indeed it. So if you have any further questions, feel free to send me a DM or message me on any other platform. Always happy to help or see what's going on. With that, I want to thank you all for your time, and I hope that you learned something new about Next.js, and we'll give it a try because it's really fun to use. It's quick, it's super fast, and I definitely enjoyed building like cool little mini websites with it, and as well as enterprise systems. So cool to use. Thank you, guys. Bye.